Welcome back to the Scaffold podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Mark Emond, who is the CEO of DemandSpring. These days, DemandSpring is pioneering AI-driven marketing for visionary leaders. Mark, I'm stoked to have you here today. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Russell. Really looking forward to being on the podcast with you and chatting with you.
For those who don't know you, can you just sort of introduce yourself briefly and then tell us a bit more about DemandSpring?
Sure. Yeah, I'm founder and CEO of DemandSpring. We're a B2B marketing consultancy that has been in business for 13 years. Prior to that, I had spent 17 years in the tech industry, organizations like Corel, Cognos, and IBM, and left to start DemandSpring in 2012. I had a vision, inspiration, and a very supportive wife who, that all allowed me to really pursue that vision of creating a revenue marketing or a growth marketing consultancy. I had worked with a lot of brand agencies back when I was with Cognos and IBM. Had always found that the demand side of the agency or consulting world was lacking in terms of experience and expertise. And so I launched that in 2012, and we've had a really great run. Continued to evolve with the times, focused a lot through much of our existence on helping organizations with the strategies to develop, the opportunity to grow from a marketing perspective, pipeline and revenue, and then also implement technologies, marketing automation platforms like Marketo. And really where we've increasingly focused over the last year is building up an AI services practice and really becoming very focused on AI. I really believe we're at a tipping point right now in terms of marketing practices and technology, that AI is really going to power the next 20 years or so of growth and change how we do marketing. And we're really at the forefront of that at DemandSpring, helping CMOs and their teams drive AI strategies and implement new business processes, reshape how they're doing things, taking advantage of the technology.
Well, this one's super special to me because it's kind of what I do. I'd love to hear your thoughts of blending what marketing was in the past to what it is now with AI, and then how we're going to use AI looking forward to the future. Now, one thing you said, those 17 years in tech, you mentioned a big three-letter word, IBM. What was that like working there, and what was the gut feeling or the internal talk you had with yourself? Like, I'm going to leave and I'm going to make this decision. Obviously, having a supportive partner helps, but what made you rip the Band-Aid off?
It was a great experience overall. So I was with IBM for 4 years. First 2.5, I'd say. Cognos was the biggest acquisition IBM had made at that point. I think still second biggest after Red Hat. So, we were over $1 billion business analytics company. And I think IBM had learned a lot about acquisitions by the time they acquired us, how to do them successfully. So they left us largely alone for the first 2.5 years. Last year and a half, I was really absorbed into IBM's business processes and infrastructure. And learned a ton. Great people, so smart, doing great things. I think for me, the reason that I wanted to start my own thing was we had done some amazing things at Cognos, especially when it came to growth marketing. We were Eloqua's first $1 million client. We were Salesforce's biggest client. We had, way back in 2005, we had about 1,400 inbound nurture streams. And so I wanted to bring that to other organizations. I wanted to bring, and especially back in 2012, when marketing automation was still very, pretty much early days. It was in the growth phase of a product life cycle. Marketers were really starting to change how they did marketing, much more digital oriented, much more analytics driven. Using marketing automation, they could now measure and manage where buyers were at in the buyer journey and deliver very personalized, targeted engagement to drive pipeline and revenue. But there were still a lot of organizations that weren't there yet. And I saw, based on what we had done at Cognos, I saw the opportunity, and I had a passion for bringing that to other organizations. And I also had a real desire to build something myself and build a team around me. I think at my heart, I'm a smaller organization guy. As great as IBM was, it was 400,000 people. And, for someone with a bit more of an entrepreneurial spirit, that can be a little challenging to work within. So left to start DemandSpring and work with B2B brands to do what we had done at Cognos and then at IBM. And it's been a great run since.
Maybe somebody watching this is in corporate and they've got an idea and they want to jump on it, but they're like the next step. So you saw a gap, you're entrepreneurial, what's the process look like? Do you suggest having conversations with maybe some investors first? Do you obviously suggest having some cash behind you? That's of course clear. What's one thing we must do if we are going to sort of change course a little bit like that?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is your network, right? About a year into Demand Spring, I was sitting down with our accountant for the business, our accounting firm, and we had a good first year and we looked like we were on our way. And he said, the one thing that people don't realize when they're in a corporate role is the unrealized value of their network. And what you've done is you've unlocked that value in your network. For me, and I've talked to different entrepreneurs who have, been more prepared and less prepared, and there's been success on both sides, right? For me, what I did was wrote a business plan and tested it for a year. Had tons of virtual coffee conversations with people within my network, got feedback, got input, continued to shape, and also used it as a means to start to garner some potential interest in working with us. So, a lot of the people that I reached out to, it was purely just I knew they would be great people to give me feedback. And then some of the people I knew could potentially be customers. And, I would just ask them, if I went ahead and launched this, would you be interested in talking about whether or not we could support your organization? And the last week that I was at IBM, I already had a couple of customers ready and waiting for day one at Demand Spring and starting to do work there. So I think your network is just the most important thing. And that has continued to be true throughout our time at Demand Spring. Most of our business throughout our 13 years has come from relationships, either professional relationships, partnerships with various brands that we partner with, or with client relationships, right? Either expanding existing accounts or when people move to new organizations, right? You do great work for them, they take you with them. So that to me is always number one. And I think it's also being a little fearless, right? You're stepping off a ledge, no matter how well prepared you are. When you start your own thing, you're stepping off a ledge. And, but at the same time, when I have coffee conversations with would-be entrepreneurs all the time, I say, there's very few people who have started their own thing that I've talked to that where, they're always worried that getting to yes is going to be a problem. And the reality is saying no becomes more of a problem, that they're more busy than they ultimately can handle out of the gate, right? If they've got a good network, they've got good skills, they've got good expertise, typically you're going to be pretty successful in my experience.
It's that age-old saying, is that your network is your net worth. So true. Just as you were talking, that's like you can do all the preparation. For some reason it popped in my mind. It's like, depending on what stage you're at, you either have a kid or you don't have a kid, or you're thinking about a kid. And everyone's like, before I have the kid, I want to do X, Y, Z, and then I'll be ready. And then you do X, Y, Z, and you're still not ready.
Right. Yeah.
At some
Yes.
point, you can read all the books. You've just got to
Yeah.
actually do the thing.
Yeah. That's 100% true. I think for being a parent, even getting married to a certain degree, for some, for being an entrepreneur, right? You're never fully ready. You just got to take the leap and then swim hard and rely on your experience and your network and your expertise and your ability to continue figuring things out as you go.
Okay, so are you able to take us through sort of a customer journey or your ideal ICP, and
Yeah.
then how does it work at Demand Spring? What are some of the problems that you're solving there?
I think the one thing that defines a Demand Spring client is they've got a real quest for marketing transformation. They're not satisfied with the status quo. They want to grow, they want to develop, they want to use best practices and next practices, and they want to innovate. Typically, the clients that we work best with in terms of our skills and the way we're structured tend to be from late, PE or VC firms, Series E, Series F, through to mid and then large enterprises. We've got a number of Fortune 500 clients that we've worked with for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I think it's because they've got, what works well for us is when we can go in and work with some really great internal people, a team that has enough size and skill that we can take them to the next level. Where we don't typically thrive is in, organizations that have CEO as the marketer or maybe one marketer, and we've got to be the entire marketing organization. We typically come in and we're a little bit more mature in where we can really add value.
Right. I mean, it is totally two different things as well. Although you definitely know more than me. A lot of the CEOs that I'm talking to are sort of a one-man band, especially in the startup world. And that seems to attract a lot of interest towards the AI and AI with marketing, because AI can do everything. And so they think that, well, if I just use AI, I literally do an ICP, a GTM, do a thing, and then it can do my emails, and then it can also do this and that. Would you agree with that to some extent? Are you hearing the same things, or no?
Well, I would say yes and no. So I do believe AI can really scale your efforts, but I also think AI is best suited for people who have a given level of expertise and knowledge in a given function. I apply that to any function, and I think the stats prove out that when you add AI to someone who has 10 to 15 plus years of experience versus somebody who's, say, straight out of college, you actually get more of a lift from that more experienced person. In even just, I don't do a lot of client delivery myself these days, but I am working on one client delivery project right now. And I know just working on that project, a combination of AI's insights and then my experience being able to shape and craft and take what AI has given me has produced really powerful results. Much better than if I just worked on my own without the AI as a thought partner. And I think much better than, if I just let AI go by itself without adding my experience and expertise. So I do think if you're a CEO and you're relying on AI to do your marketing for you and you don't have a marketing background, I think you'd get much better results and lift by bringing in at least a fractional CMO who's got that background, who can use the technology to scale, but then, their expertise will get much more out of the technology as well.
Are you able to just give us a quick example of a problem and a solution of what you do at Demand Spring, of a recent success or what you're working on currently with someone?
I mean, a good example, you asked me about ICP, for example. So we've always done a lot of buyer journey and buyer persona work for clients. We do a number of strategy projects on the marketing side: buyer journey, buyer persona, account-based marketing strategy development, sales and marketing alignment, for example, building growth strategies, building nurture strategies, and then implementing technology platforms that help to scale and grow it. So, one good example is on the ICP side of things. We've always historically done a lot of primary research for clients coming in, identifying their primary target personas and the buying process they go through. Who's in the buying center? What are they thinking, feeling, and doing in each stage? Now we're applying AI to that process, getting much more specific, using AI to get much more granular, much more personalized. And we're even using AI to help operationalize it, which has always been the challenge with ICP and buyer journey, buyer persona research, is operationalizing it and not just having it be a great set of research. So we're doing things like building custom GPTs, for example, now, where for every piece of content you write targeting a given persona, we're putting it through the custom GPT to see how it would relate and perform to that persona that we've done research on.
Right, that's cool. What do you think is a common misconception about AI that you've seen revolt in marketing?
I think one thing that we are seeing a lot of is thinking about it as a technology, and a technology that you don't necessarily need to really think about strategically within marketing. I would say this is probably true across many functions. There's a lot of experimentation going on. There's a lot of employee experimentation going on. I think a lot of organizations haven't figured out how to truly drive great organizational transformation and business value out of it. And that's frankly where we're really focused on. We typically like to start when we're working with a client on AI from a strategic perspective of aligning their AI strategy, helping them build an AI strategy that aligns to their marketing priorities and their business strategy. And then from there, looking at how can it help them reshape their operating model, reskilling, upskilling their people to be curious, competent, and confident with AI, helping them rethink some of their marketing processes using AI, and then applying AI technology against those high value use cases. So I think that's the misconception, but misalignment on where a lot of organizations are using AI today. They've applied it tactically to help them create content, for example. They haven't really thought about it strategically. And I think that's where organizations have got to get to with it.
Yeah, okay. Help me piece together sort of highlights the way that you do things at Demand Spring, because I think that'll show a lot of value, help paint a picture for people, particularly like a fractional CMO who's maybe been in the game for a long time and they're new to AI. There's going to be a bit of a roadblock, right, on how they used to do things and now how they're doing things with AI. You kind of touched on it, but are you able to dive deeper on that and paint a bit more of a clearer picture?
I think the one thing I would encourage is, first of all, for say a fractional CMO, I would start with use AI for as much as you can, even in your personal life. Get comfortable and confident and curious, and then you'll see light bulbs will go off. and you'll really start to apply it to almost everything you do in marketing, right? So, how it used to get done, we're still very much in the early days of AI, is, very manually. And, with AI, obviously, there's just a huge level of automation that you can apply. It's not a replacement, it's an augmentation of what you're doing. That can be on anything from starting with, again, your ICP. Who are you targeting? Let's refine that using AI-driven insights. And then your buyer personas and your buyer journey. And then applying some, as in my example, building a custom GPT where every email, every social post, every white paper that you write, website content, put it through that GPT that's loaded with the buyer persona and buyer journey insights to see if it actually resonates and reflects the pain points at that stage in the buyer journey. And then from there, content creation, creating a content calendar, editorial calendar, content creation and shaping for not only scale, but also tone, the right tone that you can use it for. Does it match even things like AI can match, for different personas, the Myers-Briggs profile or the DISC profile of target personas to see if your tone is correct, if your match with their personality is correct based on the persona. So, I think when you talk about and you ask about how was it done and how can it be done, I think that what people find when they start to get more comfortable is they start thinking about how they can do everything better with AI across all their marketing functions, how they can automate workflows better, how they can unite teams better, break down silos. I think we're really just at the tipping point of that with AI agents and workflow automation. I think we're going to see a lot of the silos that have existed within marketing and even between marketing and sales start to break down with a level of workflow automation and AI agents. So just some ways I think that to your question, that people can really kind of reshape how their work and how they can enable their teams to get much more productive, scalable, and personalized in their marketing efforts.
Yeah, and I would encourage to go as deep as you can. I remember some of the starting prompts you used to see on Twitter and stuff was define this ICP, boom, and just one shot at it, and that was it. But I encourage to go deeper in that. I mean, I saw you light up when you were talking about some ideas there. What are some exciting emerging trends that you're excited about with AI, or what's your current favorite use case for AI?
Well, I'll talk on two levels. I'll talk strategically and I'll talk tactically. Strategically, again, what I'm most excited about is the opportunity for marketers to really take a much more strategic approach with AI, right? So I really, again, where we love to start is let's plan an approach to using AI that has you really rethink how your people are working, some of the problems that exist in your business processes internally, and then how you get much more personalized and relevant. I think in terms of use cases, a little bit more tactically, AI being applied in various ways. So account-based marketing, getting much more targeted and relevant upfront in your account-based marketing. Who are you targeting? Are they the right accounts? Where are they at in the buyer journey? Are they showing intent? Really being able to scale content in a very personalized way and having AI react to engagement and create content that is based on various target accounts and how they're engaging, and being able to do that collectively with sales. SDR optimization is another great, SDR productivity, right? And I know that kind of sits in between marketing and sales, depending on the organization. And some may report into marketing, some it reports into sales. But regardless, SDRs have such a big impact on the outcome of marketing-driven initiatives. And there are so many ways that AI can improve SDR productivity, from, again, upfront defining who SDRs are targeting in their outbound, to being able to handle a lot of the manual data entry that consumes way too much time for SDRs today. So really unlocking more time to engage with inbound and outbound prospects, to SDR training, things like doing training with an AI avatar, video-based AI avatar, where, if I'm a new SDR and I'm trying to hone my pitch, handle objections, and move towards a telequalified lead stage, I can do training through video with a client or a mock prospect who's actually an AI avatar, right? And even things like providing real-time feedback on calls that AI can provide. So some use cases, and then there's some really great kind of very tactical use cases. John Milne, who's the VP of our AI services, just did a webinar for a third-party company last week where he talked about five practical use cases of AI, and one of them was have AI scan your website and then turn it into a podcast where you can listen to an AI review of your website in a podcast format, right? And then you can share it out throughout your marketing organization, get your team just thinking and engaging in a different way with how your website is created and the insights gleaned from it from AI.
So interesting. You did it with Demand Spring?
He did it with Demand Spring. Yeah. Yes. So our marketing team is
Can
in
we
the
see that?
process of reviewing it now.
Awesome. That's going to be
Yeah.
cool.
You've got some work to do.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I want to circle back to sort of more businessy stuff.
Yeah.
So, yes, that's a technical term. So, Demand Spring didn't start out this way. Obviously, you're very well known for doing marketing a certain way. Now you're pivoting, not pivoting. How do you sort of promote the new thing that you're doing? Because
Mhm.
you're known for this, and now you're moving into the AI. How do you bridge that gap to make sure that everybody knows you are the experts at this?
Yeah, I think the first thing we're saying is, we're not, we've always been about solving marketing problems. For us, it's never been technology first. It's always been, what value are we trying to drive and what are the things that are keeping CMOs and marketing executives up at night and how do we solve them? And
Oof.
that's evolved throughout. If we were an organization that's 100 years old, not 13 years old, the how would have evolved throughout that time. The what, solving problems that enable marketing and hence the business to drive growth, I think would remain constant. So that's been our constant. We still frame things as we're solving marketing problems. We're now using AI to solve those problems. And we're very much an AI forward organization, infusing AI into, because we believe that AI can be infused into everything from that, that ICP definition through to engagement, through every channel, through social, through email, through marketing automation platforms, through website personalization, through an SDR channel, for example. We're still all about solving problems. Now we're applying AI and infusing it into everything we do. And that's been kind of at the forefront of how we've pivoted the positioning of our company.
Yeah. Okay. And did you bootstrap when we chatted before? I think I
Yeah.
remember you saying you bootstrap Demand Spring, right?
We still are bootstrapped. Yeah, we have not taken a dollar of outside investment. We've continued to run the business in a profitable manner throughout our 13 years without outside investment, and it's created some great fundamentals in the business, and a focus on making sure that we're making smart decisions every day.
How? How long
Yeah,
have we got? I know, but give us the key milestones, if you will, on how somebody can do that, and then let's talk about your team afterwards as well.
yeah. I mean, I think there were two things that we started the company, two founding principles that we started the company with. One is we wanted to be a great place to work, and we wanted to be a great place to work with, right? So creating a really great culture internally where people are inspired to come to work and we're challenging them to grow their skills. And secondly, surprising and delighting our clients throughout. And as a result, we've been able to attract some really great clients with a really high net promoter score. Our average net promoter score historically is over 90 out of 100. And our average employee promoter score is close to that. So, we keep our eye on those two balls. We've been able to retain and grow clients and some big, large clients and be kind of core to what they're doing on the marketing side. And that's enabled us to manage the business. And we've learned things along the way. We've been largely profitable year after year in the business, with the exception of a couple of years. And in those couple of years, we really learned things. How do we manage the business more effectively? How do we make sure that we, control our growth within our means? And, how do we, and the toughest part has been growing your brand awareness without taking outside investment and scaling growth without outside investment. And, that's something we've learned along the way. And I think we've kind of had this, metaphor that we're growing like a tree. We want a strong set of roots. We want, a strong core. And then, we're going to grow with smart decisions from there. And we don't want to get so far ahead of ourselves. And we can't, being that we're bootstrapped, where we're growing our expense line faster than our top line and compromising our future.
Good way to put it, actually. That, like you say, 13, 15 something years in business. Like, that's actually quite a long time. You put it in perspective to massive trees, it's not that long.
Yeah.
So it's a
Yeah.
good perspective. You said you had some tough years. From the
Yeah.
tough years come some of the best lessons. Are you
Yeah.
able to a lot of early founders listen in here. Are you able to help them? What were some of those lessons and how did you solve them?
Well, there were two distinct and two very different set of factors around it. One was back in 2018, I think. We grew our expenses, we grew our headcount too fast, quite honestly.
Right.
Didn't properly modulate our headcount of consultants for our revenue growth, and got ahead of our skis in that regard. So, that was just learning about properly managing utilization and revenue per headcount, right? Because in the consulting business, right, your revenue comes from your people and your heads, and you got to make sure you've got the right revenue per headcount. So that was really about more of a financial exercise than anything else. What we learned, and we've had much better financial controls since then. We were still figuring out. One of the things that we've stressed from day one is we know CMOs roles and marketing executives roles really well, because we're not lifelong consultants. We have been in their shoes, and that has been really instrumental to our success. But the downside of that was, especially in our early years, we didn't really know how to run a consulting business all that well. So, and we learned that lesson the hard way financially in 2018. The other one was, I had actually, so about 3 years ago, I stepped out of the business day to day to step into a chairman role, and just kind of step back, still involved, but not on a day to day, full time. And that was combined with marketers after the pandemic were spending a lot of money and business was great. And then kind of around the time I stepped up, they stopped spending money. CFOs started prioritizing profitable growth. And so I stepped back into the business full time last year. And, I think we just found that, and the team found that it was a difficult time economically in terms of spend. And so we recalibrated the size of our team for our spend, got back to profitability in a very good way over the last year, and just found some things too about our culture and, how we got a little bit away from those founding principles that I talked about earlier that are key to our success. So I think we've gone back to basics, gone back to our fundamentals, gone back to our founding principles. The team is super energized. We've delivered really great results over the last year. And so that was a great learning experience.
Just out of curiosity, what number do you put on revenue per employee? Everyone's got a different number. You don't have to say
Yeah.
if you don't want to.
Yeah, we find if we're somewhere around the 300 to 350 thousand per employee, that's a pretty good profitable number for us.
I think that's quite reasonable.
Yeah.
A lot. I keep saying a lot. Some people I talk to are chasing 500K, 1
hmm
million
hmm
per employee. So I think that's quite. Is modest the right word? Reasonable and
Yeah.
attainable. And yeah, interesting. Let's talk
It kind
about
of
your
fits.
team.
There's two. I'll just comment on a couple of things there, Russell. There's two things that I think kind of relate to that. One is that metaphor of the tree, right? So
Yeah,
whereas, I know a lot of organizations who really chase hyper growth, they're focused on that 500K, a million plus mark, right? For us, we want to grow responsibly. We want to make sure that we want to grow sustainably. And hence that 3 to 350 works well. The other thing that really works in our favor is we have some labor arbitrage, where I'm a Canadian, I'm based in Canada, in Ottawa. Most of our clients are in the US, so we get paid in US dollars. Most of our expenses are in Canadian dollars. So we get a nice exchange rate favorability there that helps to lift our results.
I know all about that. Do you know it's side note? I don't know if it's the universe. I was having lunch today. This won't make the show, but I was watching. I went to Japan for the first time last year with my missus. She loves it, and it was reforesting Japan and sustainability. And we're talking about trees and tree growth and the life of trees. And we keep talking about trees. So I don't know if there's something going on, but anyways, yeah. Let's circle back to your team, Mark. Can you tell us your team's fully remote? Where are most of them located? How do you build a remote team? Like, talk to me about team.
I think the number one thing is we've always tried to find and this was pre-COVID. We've been a remote team. We did have a couple of small offices before COVID, but we still had the guy. We gave the guidance to our employees: you can come in the office whenever you want. You can stay home whenever you want. And we always tried to hire the best person for the role. Now, sometimes we would identify roles that we wanted to be in Canada. versus the US because of, again, the favorable exchange rate on it. But generally, we have hired from typically throughout North America, although we've had people travel and live in both Asia and Europe who have been on our payroll and work for us while they're over there, either temporarily or permanently. But for us, it's always been about where can we hire the right individual, and we don't care where it is. We've opened up the world to hiring, and so if we have had and we continue to have people today, largely throughout Canada, Ottawa, Toronto, Vancouver, and the East Coast. And then throughout the US, the Northeast, New England, Boston area tends to be a real hub for us, both in terms of clients as well as employees. But we've had people throughout the US, from Texas to California to Montana to Florida, that have worked for us and continue to.
That's quite a diverse range of locations, people, culture, mannerisms. Are you in direct communication with all of these employees, or do you have someone doing that, managing that?
Yeah, I mean, Zoom makes it so easy today, right? To sustain a virtual culture. I think the one thing we found is it's really important for us to try and get together face to face, pre-COVID and then economic cost controls, both within our company and within our client companies. We ran a semi-annual business review, SABRE, we call it, where we get together every 6 months face-to-face as a team. And we're just getting back to that face-to-face now. And with the team, we've done regional satellite events every 6 months since. And this summer, we're going to get everyone together in one location again. And we just find that mix of virtual combined with that face-to-face connection provides the inspiration and the connection to each other and the business that everyone needs.
So we talked before, it's 15 remote employees you currently have?
Yeah, correct.
I can't remember where I read this, but I'd like to know your thoughts on this. I read it somewhere that we can only effectively manage at your level 5 people, and then you need to employ somebody to manage the rest of the people. So is that currently your structure? Because in my experience working with remote teams, having my own remote team, working in a remote team, it can be hit and miss sometimes. And before you find say I was working at Demand Spring before, I feel like I'm part of the furniture. So how can a CEO make sure that you can fit in quicker, build culture, maintain the team, grow the team? How do you know when to hire? Like, I have so many questions about remote teams.
One thing I've found in my own personal journey as a CEO, Russell, is that I have gotten, and this has actually really helped when I stepped out of the day-to-day role to be our chair for about 1.5 years, is I got out of the weeds and I stayed at a much higher level. And I've done that since coming back in so that I could really see the business from a more strategic perspective and manage it much more strategically. So, right now I've got 4 direct reports to me, and we've got 2 managing directors that then manage, another group of people. And then we've got one layer of management below that. So we're still relatively flat. We're only 15 people. We do have a number of associates that don't work on our payroll that are really key partners to us that we also manage. But, I agree that span of control, can only be so large before you're spreading a leader too thin. But it's about finding that balance too. You also don't want so many layers in a small organization that people just feel like they, are too far from any decision making, and the communication chain isn't great. So that's been our challenge that we've continued to work on throughout the years, and my own personal challenge. And I found that just leading from a more strategic perspective has definitely helped the business overall.
Right, and I'm sure there's a lesson that you learned. Maybe you could give us one. But how do you know when to make the next hire? What signals are you looking for? Is it going into a new geography? Is it revenue markers? Is it just reports from the team?
I'd say it's revenue markers. It's also skill set to a large degree. One of the lessons I learned relatively early on is there are roles that you can hire for not on your payroll, and then roles you want to hire for on your payroll. And the roles that you want to hire for on your payroll often are where skills are scarce, right? Where you need to acquire those skills and have them focused and dedicated to you. Take, for example, a writing resource, a content creator, for example. With the size of, obviously, our clients, large Fortune 500 clients, they have, large teams of content marketers, and that totally makes sense on payroll. For us, it never has, because, and we've aligned ourselves with some great partners who are content marketers who have done a lot of content creation alongside us. But we've never felt like the talent is so scarce that we needed to hire on payroll. Whereas, there are some very distinct roles today, typically more technical roles where there is more scarcity, and you really want to make sure you've got focus, dedication, and continuity in the allocation of those skills. So that tends to be revenue, client servicing certain clients, but skill scarcity is a big factor for us.
I almost was going to interrupt and say, in 5 to 10 years' time, will content marketers even be a thing with AI? Do you have
I,
any thoughts on is AI taking those jobs?
I would say even now. So to me, the answer is yes, but I think they are more really editorial staff and content strategists more than writers. I think, again, um, AI can be a great augmentation in so many ways, including writing. But I still think you absolutely want to have very skilled writers who are managing the strategy and the end output of what you're creating from a content perspective.
I imagine you're almost going to echo that, because even high level marketers, I mean, even me, I've thought about, it's like, will I even have a need at some point if AI is going to get so good? But I guess you would echo that sentiment.
I really believe that a couple of things. I think that a lot, especially in mid and large organizations, a lot of marketers have become more project managers and process managers than creative marketers. They're managing, a lot of internal and agency or consulting teams and the processes that they go through to create end output. And I think what AI is going to do is it's going to turn marketers into more strategic analysts. I think there's really going to be kind of two roles that emerge more broadly, no matter the function. And there'll still be different functional area experts, be it content, be it product marketing, social media. But I think how people do their job is going to evolve into less about doing and more about analyzing and optimizing, partnering with AI to do more of the doing. So I think that's one role. The other role, I think, are going to be DevOps people who are using AI to create things like custom GPTs and in-house AI development to accomplish more things, to automate more workflows, to use AI agents to stitch together processes and unite business processes and break down silos. I think that's the evolution we're going to see with AI.
I agree. Was there anything specifically that you have coming up that you would like me to mention? Is there any topics that we should talk about that we haven't?
Yeah, what we can talk about is we've got new AI services coming out that support different use cases. So if we want to dive into kind of the evolution of how we see AI being adopted in organizations and how we can support that, how we're kind of focused on supporting that, I think that would be great.
Literally asked that question now.
Perfect.
Let me just make sure I've got this right. Mark, how do you see organizations adopting AI and Demand Spring supporting that into the future and now?
Great question. I think, Russell, first of all, I think we have this vision and even a visual that we use, and when we promote how CMOs should be thinking about AI is, a slider moving from employee experimentation to organizational transformation. So it starts with thinking about AI strategically, aligning it to the core things that are keeping you up at night and the opportunities in front of you, and then using AI to think about, how you upskill your people, how you reshape your marketing processes, and how you rethink your tech stack. And specifically when we think about marketing use cases, I touched on some of them earlier. How can you get better precision and performance out of your account-based marketing? How can you make your SDRs more productive? How can you strengthen your ICP and your buyer journey insights to create a better plan up front for your marketing? How can you drive, much more personalized engagement? How can you automate a lot of your workflows? And these are a lot of the things that we're thinking of at Demand Spring. We're rolling out new services around really each of those things that I just identified. Search in an AI age, right? We know that search is dramatically changing, right? More and more people going to places like ChatGPT, Perplexity to find the answers versus, say, historically Google, right? So these are all kind of use cases that we're building out solutions-based services around, starting with strategy, looking at various technologies you can adopt and incorporating them into your current workflows and your business processes and rethinking your business processes. So that's how we think organizations and marketing executives should think about AI. Start with strategy, align to use cases, align to current problems, and then think about really the whole operating model, people, process, and technology, and really kind of stack rank, where you're going to get the most value out of AI based on current pain points and performance.
Just curious, what's the average from a lead coming in? Say I've inquired, help me, and then we're being helped. What's the average sort of onboarding or discovery phase timeline that you guys have there? or does it completely vary depending on the size of the organization?
I'd say it varies more. So we can move pretty quick at Demand Spring. A variety of our clients, typically, especially mid and large size clients, the most challenging part is getting through the procurement and contracting process. And in their teams, bigger teams, complex financial services, highly compliant driven financial services organizations take longer through that procurement and legal governance process. But we get into it pretty quickly with clients. We love to start with great discovery, create strategy, and then really partner with them to start to operationalize and drive results. We, being on the client side as long as we did, we know that success means long-term transformation, but absolutely quick wins, early results, being able to showcase internally to build momentum and to alliances internally for projects that you need quick wins. So we strive to drive those pretty quickly.
Right. And switching topics to sort of how you're building lead gen and how are you leveraging AI? What's your process look like there, and what is your most successful acquisition channel at the moment?
Well, one of the big things when you talk about how we're doing marketing as a consulting firm, right? Our product is our brains. So we develop a lot of content. We're pretty prolific when it comes to blog posts and using our social channels to really drive and showcase our knowledge and our IP. We've always believed that a consulting firm needs to really showcase our IP. So you'll see us, you'll see me on LinkedIn pretty much on a daily basis. That's one of the channels that has historically worked best for us, is just showing that we are showing up every day, keeping our brand prominent every day, and showcasing our knowledge and our thought leadership every day. And we find that when we do that, there's a real correlation between that and our pipeline. And then we're using marketing automation. We've long used Marketo as our marketing automation platform. We use that to drive results, but increasingly we're using a lot of AI as well, on our website for email engagement, for social optimization, for content, and all of those things. And also for SDR productivity, we partnered with a company, Tiga AI, that we use for a lot of our outbound sales development activities. So those are the channels that we tend to use to drive our pipeline and our growth from marketing. And then the other thing, for consulting firms is it's, just building relationships within our clients. And so much of our business comes from client expansion, our clients moving to other organizations and taking us with them. And so we do a ton of work just building those relationships and continually being in front of our clients.
Yeah, the two things that come to mind, I completely agree. LinkedIn is goated, as the young kids say. I had a very interesting conversation, and maybe you'd be interested in this tool as well. We can either speak about it now or off camera. But one company that I used to work for, that I used to write content for, was Beehive, and they do a fantastic job as a company with marketing, both from the founder level, CEO level, and then the hive of the team. Literally, tweet, and if you want engagement, hashtag Beehive or at Beehive, and their whole entire 30, 40, 50 army of team will comment on it. How important is it to you that the team gets involved in marketing, social media marketing?
Yeah, we want to amplify our efforts as much as possible. We've had so many people throughout the years come to us, and when they know, and we're 15 people now, we've been as much as 30, 31, 32 people. But despite our size, we've always had people come to us and say, I always thought you were much bigger than you are based on your marketing presence. And amplification, social amplification, is really a key part of that. I think we can continue to do better. We're still not at the place where I'd love us to be in that regard. So I'd love to learn more about Beehive, but yeah, I would advocate for CEOs and CMOs out there, the more you can drive social amplification and drive, because I think it's about a conversation and engagement, and it's not just about reposting or liking, right? It's about true engagement.
Yeah.
And trying to foster as much dialogue as possible. And that's where I think the magic really happens in social.
So I always have a question that I ask everybody, which I'll ask shortly. Just want to make sure that there's no event or launch coming up that you want to mention, the webinar or any links that you want to highlight or me to reference?
Yeah, we're constantly sponsoring various events. We've just sponsored the Hard Skills Exchange events, which are really great. I would highlight those as great events for people who are looking to get more insight and increase their knowledge in AI. They run some great, they had an AI-led growth summit that we were a sponsor of, and then an AI-led practice skills session that we were also a sponsor of recently. We Just came back from the B2B Marketing Exchange event that was held in Scottsdale, Arizona. We'll likely be sponsoring Marketing Profs again coming up this year. So those are some key events that you can find us at if you're in North America. And then, there's always great stuff going on our social channel. You go to Demand Spring on LinkedIn, go to our website. We're constantly refreshing our website with new insights, new blog posts, new videos. So great ways that you can find, engage with us and get some insight into what we're thinking and share your thoughts with us.
Right. Well, Mark, before we wrap up, I have one final question that I ask all our guests. Not that profound, but what's one piece of advice that you'd give young founders out there?
Well, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier, Russell. Your network is everything, right? So take the time to properly nurture and curate your network and use them before you launch, during and after launch, and relationships truly are king.
Thank you for sharing that. And for our listeners out there who want to learn more about Demand Spring, you can go to their LinkedIn, you can go to their website, or you can connect with Mark himself on LinkedIn. Yeah, Mark, thanks so much for jumping on.
My pleasure. Been a great conversation. Thanks for having me, Russell.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. Thanks, Mark, again for jumping on. I hope you guys really enjoy this one. Share it with a founder who should hear this, and I'll see you on the next one.